Three, two, one. Welcome to Balance of Forces. Today we have an interesting chat around EFF's gifts to the Abathembu King, Boelekaya Dalindebo. My name is Badan Khosokwane. I'm joined by our standing analyst, Jamie Mighty. Jamie, how are you, brother?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Let's jump into it.
Jump into it.
Yeah.
The EFF gifted the king. Let's start here. What's the role of kings in elections?
Well, I think we have to recognize that kings still hold a large cachet in their kingdoms. Kings still have a lot of gravitas, and a lot of people are still very plugged into traditional values, traditional systems. So we've seen it historically that people do go and visit kings, major kings, minor kings in terms of the size of the kingdoms, and they have a role. They also, I think, open up access into certain communities that you wouldn't be able to get to without the blessing of the king.
Okay. So now let's look at this thing much more closely. Why would an EFF? What's the player? Why would an EFF give the king a car?
Well, my thinking around the EFF's activities in the Eastern Cape are that the EFF is trying to enjoy the kind of growth that they enjoyed in 2019 in KZN. If you recall, the EFF was not very strong in KZN, but we saw a growth up to 10% in KZN in the 2019 election. And one of the areas of growth where you can really grow is in the Eastern Cape. The Eastern Cape represents 12% of the total electorate with about 3-point-something million votes. So if you get in there and you're able to get a sizable share of that, your party will be able to grow exponentially in the next election. And the EFF is underperforming in the Eastern Cape compared to some of their stronger provinces. So clearly they want to go there, have a strong showing, show respect to the relevant leaders, and also set an example to other leaders to say, hey, we gave this guy a Mercedes. We could also give you a Mercedes. But even with this limited action that they've had, they've grown. In 2016, the EFF had 92,962 votes in the Eastern Cape. In 2021, even though they dropped votes in between 2016 and 2021, they actually grew in the Eastern Cape from 92,000 to 113,274, right? So in percentage terms, they grew from 5.18% of the voter share to 7.87%. But obviously, we know in other provinces, they enjoy 12%, sometimes close to 13%. So what does this mean? It means that as a province, the Eastern Cape is underperforming and has lots of potential for growth for the EFF. So strategically, there is value in them actually spending time in the province with the king, with other regional leaders, giving gifts such as this Mercedes that they've given.
Now, I just want to know in terms of the usefulness, looking at a figure as Dalindebo. The Abathembu King has been known for flip-flopping. I mean, he did a stunt with the DA, and he's been known for flip-flopping. What am I asking is will it be as effective as the EFF maybe hopes it to be?
Well, I mean, they've gained votes, right, from 5 to 7, almost 8 actually, from 5 to 8% if we're rounding up. So they've already gained 3% of the electoral share just through their activities and engagement with the king. And I'm sure many people will view this as a good gesture to give the king this vehicle and to show respect to the king. Now, the king is a controversial figure, you're right. The king has shifted his political allegiance over the years. No, I'm not of the view that shifting your political allegiance is flip-flopping. I'm of the view that flip-flopping is when you change your ideological position, your principal position on certain things. But it's very possible to be a member of 3 different political parties without necessarily shifting your ideological framework, right? Because how we should engage with political parties, and here, I'm actually supportive of the king's approach. Political parties are service providers. They're there to deal with your material needs, the needs of your community, right? And you are supposed to shop around. If you no longer believe that particular party, political X, can no longer support your political needs, you should be able to move. You don't like it, move. The thing is, when we start treating political parties like churches, when we start teaching them like soccer teams, we then give them this unrelenting support, this forever loyalty, and it hurts us because those parties now know that you are loyal with them to the very end. And that's why people can say this party will rule until Jesus comes back. That because they know that they've got a certain amount of voters who are ride or die to the very end. And I don't think that's helpful, because when a political party knows that there is no mechanism for accountability because you will always vote for them, that creates the arrogance, the air of impunity, which makes people participate in corrupt activities. I want to say that, like, I mean, at the point at which we can all move around political parties, then they will now start acting and competing more with each other and actually doing the work to gain and retain your trust. Your political support should not be unconditional. My view is that your political support should be conditional and contingent on the quality of delivery that you receive from that particular political party. Just as a side note, another thing that I think is one of the reasons why the EFF is trying to be very visible and strong in the Eastern Cape, especially leading up to the next election, 2024, is simply because there's been a lot of corruption in the Eastern Cape. A classical case study is the Enoch Mgijima Stadium. This project was approved originally for 21 million. Then we get the announcement during elections that, hey, we've built the stadium for 15 million rands. And when everyone pays attention to, the stadium quality, they see that no, there's no way that this stadium costs that amount of money. And then people start asking serious questions, to say, listen, where is the bill of quantities? Where are the competing bids? Let us actually see how much you spend on each item so that we can assess whether or not this particular project was worth 15 million rands. But when you think about it, we've seen so many corruption scandals coming out of the Eastern Cape. Many corruption scandals come out of the Eastern Cape. So there could be a perception within the EFF that the ANC is doing notoriously badly in the Eastern Cape and they don't have robust competition. And then it is therefore valuable to the EFF to spend some time building up their presence, finding regional champions who can really be, organizers and trailblazers for the EFF in the Eastern Cape. This is something that happened in KZN with Marshall Dlamini. So they have a model for doing it, and they may very well be able to roll it out again.
On that thought of corruption, because this story went viral online on Twitter, right? When it went viral, there were certain voices that necessarily didn't really, take this in the same taste, and a Mercedes Benz is quite pricey. It's 1.8 million, and people were saying, "Look, this looks like a bribe for votes. Is it a bribe? Should it be looked as a bribe?"
Well, look, I think a question that has to be asked, right, is what is political practice in South Africa? In the first instance, whenever people visit kings, whenever they visit chiefs, they buy cows, they slaughter cows, they make sure that they actually show respect, and they do bring gifts. You cannot rock up to visit traditional leaders with empty hands. It's undone, right? Now, this gift pushes the boundaries of what a traditional gift would be. Because let's say we say a cow is 12,000 to 15,000. Now you've gone all the way to 1.8 million. And obviously the king is a well-paid individual. He gets money from the state, and there may be ventures in the province where the royal kingdom is actually also benefiting. This sometimes happens with the royal families where they begin to have other, interests in particular areas. And we've seen it with the royal Bafokeng. We've seen it also with the Zulu kingdom. Now, this transaction, to me, does not come across as buying a vote.
But it's very different from the traditional point of cows. When you give cows, it's different though than a Mercedes Benz. A Mercedes Benz is it's shiny. It's got the rims.
I don't think it's
a different aesthetic.
It's definitely a different aesthetic. It definitely changes the game. But really, I don't think that if you think it through, if everyone else is giving gifts, if everyone else is participating in this kind of ceremony, then why not up the stakes? Why not give the guy a Mercedes? You know what I mean? He may not need a Mercedes. It may be overkill. But what if that's the gift that you think he deserves? Right now, there is an issue here, and I think there's a bit of tension, is that, of course, you don't want people buying votes. But the king is one person. He may be an influential person, but we question also his influence because of the controversy and him having changed political parties. But the EFF did not go giving each individual voter gifts in exchange for the vote. And this is why I'm reluctant to say it's bribing for votes. You know, because the king only has one vote. You know what I mean? He only has one vote. And there is common practice of giving traditional leaders votes. So in principle, I don't see the difference. I mean, there is a difference in magnitude and scale. But in principle, there's no difference in that a gift is a gift is a gift. You can buy me a pencil. Someone can buy me a tie. Someone else can buy me an iPad. For my birthday, you've all bought me, in essence, the same thing, a gift. Now, those gifts may not be necessarily valued by me as much, but I think it's in the realm of gifts. And I think unless the criticism is extended across the board, because other politicians have also received cars from powerful people, you know, and the question is then, whether was that also vote buying?
Final thought, from a comms PR, does this look good on the EFF? Does it? Is there a bit of, you know, swagger, or I don't know how to explain it, but from a PR and comms, is it a good look?
You know what? I think it depends on who's looking. So think about it like this: other kings understand.
Hey, I need a Benz.
You could get a Benz, like open up the industry, you get a Benz, right? So that's something that other industries understand. So I mean, other chiefs, other tribal leaders understand. So obviously, this is a promise they made. They've honored their commitment. They made it a big PR event. I don't think that this is something that ultimately hurts the EFF. I think that they do benefit from having that message out there, that they come bearing gifts.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was our time. Our time is up. This is Balance of Forces. I'm Badan Kosogwade.